There was a famous Irish writer named James Joyce. You might have heard of him. He was one of the 20th century's greatest writers. He wrote a famous book called Ulysses, which is considered by many to be among the greatest novels ever written. And so Joyce was a celebrity in his age. He was known by everyone in the literary community after that book in particular. But what James Joyce did next was pretty peculiar. He started working on a book called Finnegan's Wake. And Finnegan's Wake was unlike anything that had ever been written. He basically invented his own dream language where he tried to put in all these metaphors and all these symbols through all of human history. And James Joyce worked on this book for the next 17 years. And when he finished it, most people didn't like it. Most people didn't understand it. Most people thought it was a complete waste of time, and in many ways a tragedy that one of the 20th century's greatest writers had spent so long rewriting and reworking this text that no one could even understand. I don't want to be James Joyce. I don't want to spend a very long time working on something just to get to the end and figure out that no one understands what the heck you're talking about. But I remember the story of Finnegan's Wake now in particular, because now is about the 1-year mark after I started working on this book, which many of you know I'm working on a book. I've announced it a few times on my channel. And I thought it'd be useful to make little videos like this to give updates about my book, but also to speak more generally about what the process of writing is like. And what I've realized over this year is that writing a book is, well, I mean, it's a cliche to say it's like a marathon, but really for me, it's like it's more like that metaphor of, you know, the guy Sisyphus, who is always pushing the huge boulder up the hill, and you almost get to the top and then the boulder falls down again. And then you need to start and you're pushing it up again. That's what my journey has been more like. It's been more like a journey that you think you're close to the end, but then you realize, you know, you're actually pushing up the wrong hill. And then you go to the bottom and you push up another hill, and another hill, and another hill. And as the hills become more and more numerous, you start to realize, okay, you know, the idea of spending 17 years on a book, now it's possible. Now I see how that could happen. Because if you're in that mindset of constantly revising and constantly changing and constantly researching, you know, I never thought I'd be doing this book a year later. But in this video, I want to very quickly explain what I've been doing for the past year and why I think, despite the example of James Joyce, who I think probably took it a bit too far, I actually think it is useful to push up a few different hills and in many cases to rewrite your book and restart your book. When I started this book, I wanted to write a book about travel, and in particular a book about Mexico, which is a country I lived in for a year and a country that changed the way I think about travel and changed the way I think about myself and my place in the world. In some ways, this is trying to express like my philosophy on life through what happened to me in Mexico. And so I started to write. I started to write about what it was like, you know. Canadian YouTuber, wannabe YouTuber at that point, you know, moves to Mexico, starts exploring the city, has all these amazing experiences, and I was writing and it felt great. And I wrote a lot. And I even showed some to my girlfriend, who is one of the most useful things. She is one of the most useful things every reader or every creator needs, because she is honest. Everyone needs an honest feedback. And the honest feedback she gave me in the early stages was it wasn't that good. And I realized over time it wasn't that good because I was basically just replicating days that I had already shown in the videos. And I came to realize, like, Dan, what are you spending all this time trying to describe things? They can just watch the video. What's the point? So the first idea I had was terrible. The first hill I was pushing that boulder up was definitely the wrong hill. It made no sense. So I backed up and I started to think, maybe it's not my own personal journey, like day by day, week by week, that I should be explaining. Maybe it's more about the lessons I learned over my whole year in Mexico. And if I can pinpoint those lessons, I can focus on those. So I started writing another book that was going to be called something like 10, at first it was 12 lessons. It was going to be 12 lessons learned in 12 months in Mexico. And it would be, particular moments from my life, but also just, it was more broad. It was less about me, it was more about the lessons that you can learn from traveling and living in another country. But as I pushed that boulder up the hill, and I almost got to the end, I'd written like 40,000, 50,000 words in this idea. I could have just called it a day and tried to share that book, but something inside of me wouldn't let me. Something inside of me near the top of that hill realized there's a better book to be written. And it happened when I started realizing that some of these lessons, okay, like moments in my life kind of apply to them, but some of them could be told in a better way. And what the heck? Who needs to hear about a YouTuber like traveling through Mexico? Like it's a pretty strange idea for a book. Like it's something that it was still too much about me. It was still something that people who know me and know my content might be interested in this book. But the average Mexican or the average traveler who's never heard of Dan from the New Travel, like it was just too much about me. And that wasn't the hill I wanted to push my boulder up. I wanted to push up a hill that could eventually reach anyone who's interested in travel or anyone who's interested in just growth as a human being. Because really this story is about growth. And it just so happened that my experience in Mexico led to a lot of personal growth. But I think that is a universal theme. And I wanted this story to come across that way. So in the end, it's actually not a book about me anymore. I mean, there will be parts of me buried within the story, but it's now a fiction story about, well, if you're interested in knowing a bit about what it's about, maybe that can be my next book update. But for now, I'll just say I've completely started pushing up another hill, and this is a much bigger hill. And that's why this book has been taking a year to publish, a year to finish. Publishing is another whole hill to climb. But I'm very happy with where the book is at today. And, a lot of people suggest that you just, get the book done, get the first draft done, and then you can edit some parts, and then you can be done. But the problem with that approach is you're still going up the same hill. If I had just been working from the mentality of get that first book done, and then edit it, and then publish it, financially it might have been smart, because I'd have a book to publish, and I'd get I'm sure some people would buy it, and then I'd be on to the next project, but, it's not something I'd be really proud of. I would have known inside that I just did it for the money or for the sake of saying like, I'm Dan and now I've published a book. Kind of like an ego thing. And for me, this journey of writing this book has been actually like dissolving my ego and making it started out all about me. Then it was like kind of about me and kind of about the lessons that travel can teach you. Now I'm out. I had to remove myself from it and bring in other characters and other storylines. I'm gone. But I'm loving the hill that I'm climbing. And I hope you love it too. I could still fail. That's the thing. That's why I brought up the James Joyce example. Like, There is a certain logic to the idea of like, hey, it's your first book, just get it done, save your big crazy idea for the next one. But at the same time, I don't know, you just need to follow that voice inside you that's telling you what feels right. If I reflected and I thought that I was just wasting all this time because I was like scared of releasing a book or I'm scared of finishing it, then I would have a problem. Like if there's a part of you that is afraid of finishing anything, and that's one lesson YouTube has taught me, you can't just call yourself a filmmaker, you need to finish things and you need to release things. But when it comes to writing, I am a bit of a perfectionist, I guess, but I just want to look back and be like, in 2020, I started writing a book. In the year when travel stopped, I paused and I reflected on my life and I shared the best story I could. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I know it won't be perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. But I want to be climbing up the right hill. And I'm not there yet, but I'm going to get there. And when I do, I'll have a book to share. If it sells 1 million copies, whatever, great, awesome. But if it doesn't, the view from the top will still be pretty nice. And I'll get to enjoy that. And maybe a few of you will enjoy that with me too. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. As always, I'm Dan. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.